Hello, I'm Nikki Pistorius. Stalking is not reserved only for celebrities or politicians or for public figures. It can happen to anybody, as is depicted in the television series Baby Reindeer. Today, I'm interviewing Margaret, who has a lot of courage to tell us about her ordeal with a love obsessional stalker. Now, in Baby Reindeer, the character said, I only gave her a cup of tea. And similarly, Margaret's ordeal played out in a pub, and she had the kindness to offer a glass of cold drink to the stalker. And this act of kindness led to turning her life into a living hell. Now, we should be clear that most serial killers do not suffer from mental illnesses, but most stalkers do suffer from mental illnesses. And the mental illness that is most prevalent in stalking is delusional disorder. Now, a delusion is a false belief based upon an incorrect inference about an external reality and is not consistent with the patient's intelligence nor with their cultural background, and it cannot be corrected by reasoning or by logic at all. We classify stalkers according to their motive. The love obsessional stalker has this infatuation for a person that is usually a little bit of a higher status than they themselves are. But the infatuation is not reciprocated by the target. And it's quite clear that the target is not interested in the stalker, yet that is no deterrent for the stalker. And as well, the distress that it causes the target is also not a deterrent to the stalker. So, Margaret, tell us how this stalking experience unfolded. What happened?
Well, this was about 20 years ago in the early 2000s, and I was working on a popular nightlife strip in a port city in South Africa. I managed a well-known bar and nightclub franchise, and the owners of that franchise decided to do some renovations. So a team of shop fitters came into work, and they were there every day for about a month. The team consisted of a foreman, his assistant, and a handful of laborers. I stayed on site during the day to manage operations as the venue would still be open for trade every night. One of the laborers was often teased by the group. He was bullied, given the worst jobs like heavy lifting and cleanup, and I could tell the renovation team considered him to be a little dumb, not quite bright. And I would see the foreman smack him on the back of the head occasionally, asking, "Where is your brain?"
So this person was then, as a matter of fact, humiliated and bullied in your presence, and you were a manager at that stage at this workplace. So you witnessed this, and what did you do about it?
Well, I felt quite badly for him. Let's call him Sam. And during the rest breaks in the day, I would provide the work team with glasses of soda from the soda fountain that stood behind the bar. And the workers would tell me what flavor of soda they would like, and I'd pour it and give it to them. Now, Sam would come up to the bar very shyly, eyes to the floor, hunched over and cowering almost. And I'd ask him, "What kind of soda do you want?" And he'd tell me. And I got the impression that he wasn't asked what he liked very often. When I handed him the soda, he took it from me in a very humble fashion, very much like a beggar receiving a handout. And to me, he came across as a man of a very low social status, perhaps low intelligence, certainly low self-esteem. And I thought it was possible that perhaps he didn't attend any formal schooling growing up, as he came from a rural village in another province.
So did you actually feel sorry for him in the beginning?
I did. And roughly a week after the work started, he confided in the foreman that he liked me because I was being kind to him. The foreman saw this as an opportunity to belittle him once again, and he encouraged him to make a move on me in the hopes that I would openly turn him down and in front of the whole team, giving them all something good to laugh at.
So the foreman then, as a matter of fact, drew you into this humiliation of this person that was working there. And you witnessed this, and there was workplace bullying. That's insensitive.
Yes, it is, and that's exactly what he did. So Sam came up to me at the bar and he softly mumbled something like, "You're very pretty, will you be my girlfriend?" But I politely declined and I told him that I already had a boyfriend.
So that was a kind but a very clear rejection. And did that have an effect on him? Did he stop?
Unfortunately not. This didn't deter him at all. With the foreman's constant insistence, he would approach me day after day with the same results.
So they were egging him on.
Yes. I eventually asked the foreman to stop encouraging him, as it was making me uncomfortable, but he brushed it off, saying that it was all just a joke and something to get the boys to laugh at, and that Sam was harmless and I shouldn't take the situation so seriously.
So this foreman was, in actual fact, in the beginning, instigating sort of this infatuation and at a sense condoning it, which boiled down to sexual harassment at the workplace, didn't it? And we should think that by the year 2000, when there were laws against sexual harassment at the workplace, to me it seemed like he was completely insensitive to how you felt about it as well.
Yes, very much so. I did not feel that the situation was harmless at all. I could see that it could lead to problems in the future. It continued daily until the renovation work was complete, and I thought I could finally breathe a sigh of relief when the work team and Sam finally left the building. But I was wrong. Sam started showing up at the bar regularly, still asking me to be his. Over time, he became more frustrated, and his asking soon changed to demands.
Okay. So now we can see where the delusion is becoming embedded. So, because by now he's demanding, he's actually confirming a fact that you are his, not just asking. So the delusion is now there already, that you actually belong to him. There's been an escalation.
Yes, it went from "will you be my girlfriend" to "you will be my wife. Stop playing games with me now and come, let's go."
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely an escalation. Then what happened?
He would wait outside my work until I arrived in the morning. He would try to corner me in the entrance when I was trying to go in. Even the cleaning lady who worked with me started to fear for my safety, and she would often intervene. She would distract him long enough for me to enter the building and lock the door behind me. But once the bar was open for business during the day, he could come in and stare at me as much as he wanted, while I was kept busy serving at the bar. I would notice him unobtrusively shuffling closer with a menacing look on his face. He would get closer and closer to the bar, and I would become flustered and extremely anxious. Before I knew it, he would be blocking the bar entrance, preventing me from leaving. He did this many times because I would be so busy at the bar full of customers that I wouldn't be able to make a scene.
I would think as well, in such a busy bar, that people wouldn't really notice him, or if he was there regularly, that they thought he was a regular, okay, and not notice him moving closer and closer and closer. And I can understand that you didn't want to make a scene, but actually he was being conditioned that since nobody stopped him, or you didn't stop him, that it was okay for him to approach you. And perhaps in his mind, he didn't experience himself to be menacing. Perhaps in his mind, he was just trying to get close to you because you're the object of his affection.
Yes, I think that really was the situation, until one day when he came close, right up to the bar. He came behind the bar and he saw a knife that I used to slice lemons, and he picked it up. I was quite surprised, when I noticed him behind the bar with me, and I was caught off guard. And all I could think was that I had to get out from behind the bar. But he moved closer to me and he pressed the knife against my ribs and he said, "You're coming with me now." The cleaning lady saw this and intervened. She tapped him on the shoulder from behind and startled him, and then she began to tell him off. And this gave me a gap to jump over the bar counter and run into the walk-in refrigeration room where I locked myself in from the inside.
Okay, Margaret, now that was escalating into physical violence, actually threatening you with a knife. And that's really serious. Luckily, she saw that. But at that stage, your sympathetic nervous system absolutely kicked in, the fight and flight. And there was a release of cortisol, not just adrenaline, cortisol. The stress hormone rushing through your body. I think that gave you the energy to jump over the counter and run for safety, lock yourself in the cold room, like you said. Surely by now people must have noticed that. But then in the cold room, what happened in there?
Well, you can't stay in the cold room for very long. You could get hypothermia. But I was in there and I was shaking. My eyes were darting every corner. I remember not being able to think very clearly. Luckily, my cleaner and I, we had discussed what we would do if things escalated with Sam. And she already knew what to do. She pressed the silent alarm button and the armed response guards came and they escorted him out of the building while I was still in the cold store hiding.
Okay. Tell me one thing. Did he harass you outside the bar, or was it just always within the bar?
It started in the bar, but it spread. He started following me home. He waited in the car park outside my apartment block. I found myself having to keep my curtains closed and my lights off so that he wouldn't know whether I was home or not. I lived in constant fear, and I even moved house 3 times during this period just to get away from him.
I think what this illustrates is how the impact that stalking has, first of all, on the physical environment of a person, and their homes or apartments are often turned into fortified prisons, or in this case, she was held psychologically captive by this person outside, that she had to live in a dark apartment. So that's a physical effect that it had on you. The fact that you had to relocate, I'm sure that cost a lot of money, just relocating. Was there anything else?
Yes, I had to switch from walking to work, which was a free and easy way to get to work and back. And I had to start taking private transport, taxis, which impacted me financially. Obviously, moving impacted me financially. I also had to stop taking overtime shifts to protect my safety. And all of that had a very large impact. And psychologically, I became paranoid. I was untrusting. I was antisocial. I didn't want to go out and be with my friends anymore. I was too scared. I kept thinking that he would be following me, that maybe he would, if he saw me with another man, he might hurt that person. I couldn't sleep at night, and this went on for months.
Okay, so in other words, it's the physical impact, it's the monetary impact, financials, extra financials, and also you weren't only kept physically captive, but psychologically captive. And that's why I often say stalking is psychological terrorism, because you had no freedom of headspace. Wherever you went, you always thought, where was this guy and where was he lurking? So that's the impact of stalking, and this is carrying on and on and on.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And all right, what happened then? Did you ever go to the police?
I did, but they weren't interested in my concerns. They said I had no evidence when I first went, but after the knife incident, they allowed me to open up a case of indecent assault and harassment and intimidation.
So eventually now we've got a docket.
Yes.
Did that help? What happened?
Nothing really. the bar was sold to a new owner, and he took it more seriously.
Lost.
Yeah, so working with fellow staff members, they also took it upon themselves to try and keep me safe at work. After about 3 months, I returned to the police station, and they told me that they didn't have an address to serve the warrant of arrest on to Sam.
This is now a person that threatened you with a knife.
Yes. It became clear to me that I was going to have to do that work for them. So I found out that his renovation team went to another one of our group franchises, and I asked the cleaning staff to contact the cleaners at that branch and to try and track down an address for him. Eventually, she came back with an address, which I gave to the police.
So you actually did part of the investigation for them.
Yes.
Okay. And then what happened then?
Eventually, I got my day in court.
Oh, good.
And in court, the magistrate read the charges that were put forward, and he asked me if I understood the seriousness of the allegations and whether or not I actually wanted to continue the case.
Did you get the feeling that the magistrate was trying to, I wouldn't say convince, but in a way, move you to drop the case?
I did. I got the feeling that it all just seemed like a bit of a bother to the court system. Like maybe they had bigger fish to fry, and this just seemed to be taking up time that nobody really had. But I insisted that I wanted to move forward and that I understood clearly what the charges were and that I needed legal assistance in getting protection.
Well, as you say, this is your day in court. Now we expect justice. And then what happened?
They read the charges to the defendant, Sam, and they asked him, "How do you plead?" And he responded by asking if the magistrate could marry us legally in the court in that moment so that I would stop running away from him. And the entire courtroom burst out laughing, including the magistrate and the arresting officer.
Okay, if we get this straight, here you are in court, and there is the defendant with serious charges against him that could actually lead to imprisonment. And he's been arrested by the police, he was in custody, etc. And even in those circumstances, he's not in touch with reality. And his answer is, since we are in court and he's a magistrate, can he marry you? And people laughing at that.
Yes.
Which I think just clearly shows that the general public is not educated to comprehend the severity of a delusion, nor to recognize when people have a mental illness such as a delusion. And it's, well, I hope they learn now, what a delusion could be. I suppose they probably laughed at his audacity, but I don't think it was very funny for you, was it?
No, I didn't think it was funny at all. Eventually, the magistrate decided that he was not mentally fit to stand trial. He was ordered to attend a 30-day psychiatric evaluation and taken to a state mental health facility by the police.
Okay. So at least now it's got to be assessed.
Yes.
Okay, all right, we're progressing. Right, what happened?
Well, 1 week later, I received a call from the police officer saying that he walked out of the mental health facility and was currently in violation of his court order.
He walked out? He didn't escape?
No,
which means he wasn't in a locked-up ward. He just walked out?
Yes.
Okay, what happened?
Well, they assured me that there was a warrant out for his arrest, but that he had moved locations again and they couldn't find him.
Okay. Here he is. You clearly rejected him. You weren't interested. Okay, that was quite clear. After he even threatened your life with a knife, and people saw that, there were so many witnesses, you had to do the investigation yourself and find out where he stayed. He was referred, I can agree with the magistrate there, to find out is he mentally fit. but that would happen. But he walked out. You're back at work, and what happened? Now you must be really paranoid by where is he? And what sometimes happens, Margaret, is people experience this ambivalence if they don't know where he is, okay? And they're sort of relieved when he turns up that they at least know where he is. But on the other hand, there is still the fear. So what happened when you went back to work?
Well, he was still stalking me. He just changed the way in which he did that. So he would now come out at night when he was less likely to be seen. Um, and my colleagues at work, those who work the night shift, would often phone me and tell me, don't come in, don't come to the bar tonight. He's here. Um, Someone's seen him out on the streets. Like, just stay home, don't go out. He's looking for you.
If you were working day shifts, why would you go to the bar at night?
Well, I would often work overtime at night, offer assistance when the bar got very busy. It was lucrative for me. I got paid extra money. And it was also a way to spend time with my colleagues because during day shifts I would work mostly alone.
So if I can ask you something, so by now, obviously the attitude of your employers and your colleagues was changed, right? They knew this was a serious situation. So if they saw him outside in the street at night, why the police are looking for him, there's a warrant for his arrest, why didn't the police come and arrest him?
At the time, there was a crime syndicate running a protection racket on this particular strip of road, and the police really did not want to be involved with this protection racket at all. I would go so far as to say that the police were somewhat intimidated by this protection racket, and they stayed away at night. They left it to the syndicate to keep things in check, I suppose.
Okay, so you went back to work in the day shift because that was safer, because you knew he was going to arrive at night. Okay, and what happened?
So one evening after my day shift, while I was walking out, really not far from my work, he approached me in a pickup truck with a canopy, and he grabbed me and threw me in the back. He told me that no one will keep us apart, and he's taking me back to his village where I will be his bride.
That's kidnapping.
Yeah.
What happened?
As he was driving, I managed to open up the back door of the canopy and escape. He didn't notice because he was driving, and I hid in a ditch by the side of the road until I couldn't see his truck anymore. And then I hitchhiked back to the city and went straight home, where I called in sick from work and I hid for several days.
Now you must have been petrified because this guy just tried to kidnap you. You escaped. I'm sure you got hurt when you jumped, and you are in your apartment, and I can just imagine the terror that you felt, right? There's still a warrant of arrest out for him. Did you go back to the police?
I did go back to the police station because I did have visible bruising on my back. There was evidence on my body. I was hoping that they would, treat it like an assault case and actually photograph evidence. But the police officer on duty stopped me way before that process and basically said that they still couldn't find him. They still didn't have an address for him, and so their hands were essentially tied. I asked what would happen next, and the officer shrugged his shoulders at me and said, probably nothing.
That must have felt so helpless in the depths of depression, that the people who are supposed to look after you and to protect you, and the whole legal system is failing you. At that stage, what did you do? This is the stage usually where people sometimes go out and they buy firearms or they take self-defense classes or etc. So at this point, sort of no return, what did you decide to do?
I decided to take drastic measures of my own. I got a visa for the USA. I quit my job. I told everybody I worked with and everybody who knew me to tell him that I died in a car accident, and I left the country.
Okay, so you left. That must have cost a pretty packet to save your life. How long did you stay overseas?
Roughly 18 months. And when I returned after that time, I thought it would be safe after 18 months. I was lucky enough that my boss understood why I was leaving, and he had assured me that my job would still be available if I ever came back. So the first thing I did when I returned is I went back to the bar, and they basically told me that Sam was still coming around to the bar to look for me.
Okay, hang on. After 18 months of not seeing you, I mean, he probably went to your apartment and he saw there was somebody else living there and you were there, clearly not there. Everybody told him that you were there. After 18 months, clearly you are not there. The man is still there, which again just indicates the severity of the delusion. And I always say, do not expect rational behavior from an irrational mind. He was still there. Even people told him that you were dead. What did you do?
So I managed to get the same position that I was working at another franchise in a different town. And I moved there permanently. I never went back to that street in the city. And I eventually married and I relocated to another country.
Okay, so this stalking lasted for about 2.5 years. It was 20 years ago. Well, I'd like to ask you, before we get to that, let's just, some people, sometimes they try and make sense of this whole stalking and they try to understand the psyche of the stalker. Did you engage in any behavior that would try and find out something more about him to try and make sense of what he's doing?
Yes, I did. I spoke to the cleaning staff and asked them to write back to his village, try and get some information about him. And I was told that the elders in his village refused him his rite of passage ceremony, which is a very important ceremony for young men in South Africa, that he had been ostracized and kicked out of the village. And they didn't give me the details of why.
But it's serious.
They made it clear to me that he had done something very bad to have that sort of punishment warranted.
I think, in a sense, then he was trying because he was trying to get you as his bride to take you back to the village to restore his standing in the community, sort of like a trophy to show them, that now he had a wife. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do think that's what he was trying to do, that he was trying to bring back a woman of higher social status, someone that he could show the elders and say, look, I'm worthy of getting my ceremony. I'm worthy of becoming a man. Look at this higher class woman that I've managed to bag, I suppose.
Okay, then getting back to my question, after 2.5 years of stalking, and it's 20 years later, how do you feel about it now in retrospect?
I won't lie, I can still see his face in the back of my mind. I can still see his eyes watching me. When I go back to South Africa, I'm still paranoid and nervous. I still scan the streets in case he's there. I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. I'm just very vigilant, I suppose. I don't trust strangers at all anymore. I'm not as trusting as I used to be, and I'm not as open to new things as I used to be. I'm always very wary.
Do you think that you did anything to deserve any of this?
All I did was give him a glass of soda.
As in Baby Reindeer, all he did was offer a cup of tea. I think this is a textbook case study of a love obsessional stalker, clearly with a delusional disorder. It shows all the elements of stalking that is there and how this can happen to just a normal person going about their normal life, doing their job. And they didn't ask for this. And how the victim becomes entangled in this game of chess, trying to outdo the stalker, and the lack of education in the public. And I'd like to thank you, Margaret, for your courage of being here today. And I'm sure that your narrative is going to be inspirational to other people. And I hope people would understand and that it can help them to be more alert, that when something happens, to know how soon it escalates, and absolutely to at what point of being threatened with a knife and kidnapped, etc., that it can escalate. People's lives are really in danger, really in danger. I think it also illustrates the, well, first of all, the public is not understanding it. I think the lack of training with law enforcement, and I often speak about lightweight law enforcement, that is absolutely no deterrent to these people. When they do get sentenced, they don't get sentenced long enough because it's not taken serious. And when they get out after a year or two, they are going to continue and try to find the victim as well. The victims relocate. It's not the first time that I heard that victims try to relocate, I should call them survivors, to other countries. So it is a textbook case of a love obsessional stalker. If you'd like to know more about different types of stalkers and how mental illnesses and even personality disorders can manifest in stalking, then I'd like to invite you to please join my Patreon community, where I will discuss this in much more depth. Thank you very much, Margaret, for your courage of being here today. We appreciate that. And thank you for being part of our interview.
Thank you, Nikki.